So we will pay homage to the Buddha by reciting the Namo Tassa 3 times. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Today we are going to talk about Anapanasati Part 2. Actually, this is a really very popular topic in modern society. Many of meditators also practice Anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. The Buddha also explains in many different Nikaya. So now we have to start with the first part, the quality of mindfulness according to Samyutta Nikaya. Katam bhavito ja bhikkhave anapanasati anapanasati katam bahulikato jeva sando jeva panito ja asajjanako ja sukho ja viharo uppano panne ja babake akusale dhamme thana so andara dhapeti upasameti. This is the questions from Samyutta Nikaya. We call Vesali Sutta. That the Buddha mentioned when mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, how bhikkhus does the concentration by mindfulness of breathing become calm and sublime, unadulterated, blissful, abiding, making evil and unwholesome dhamma disappear and cease as soon as they arise. That is the Buddha saying. So if we can develop the mindfulness of breathing, we can subside all kinds of akusala dhamma as soon as they arise. This is the power of Anapanasati. Now here we also have to talk about many different things in this the Pali sentence. So the first one is Santo in Pali. We can also say calm or stabilize. So what does it mean, calm and stabilize? Actually, Santa also can be considered as like a peacefulness. When we can practice Anapanasati very well, then we may have peacefulness. Then again, we also have like a Panito, maybe the next slide maybe, right? Panito, the sublime and extremely good for meditators. So that means it's really very good for practitioners because it's very simple practice. The mindfulness of breathing is superior and desirable objects. It's not like evasiveness meditations. So there's nothing to be prepared for before meditations like other meditation subjects such as kasina. So when we are practicing kasina, we have to prepare many things before we start practicing. For example, we have to prepare the kasina cycle. Also, when we are going to practice asava meditation, we have to go and see the dead body. Also, many of people don't wish to see undesirable things like asava, dead body. But in the case of mindfulness of breathing, it's very simple. We just need to see or know the breathing with our mind. That is why we don't need to prepare. Wherever we go, we have breathing. We can meditate anywhere we like. Like kasina meditations or asava meditations, when we can visualize the kasina objects or when we can visualize the dead body, we can practice easily. If we cannot visualize it, we may have difficulty. But in the case of Anapanasati, it's very simple. Just keep knowing the breathing through the sensation or touching point. It's good enough. So in other words, the asajjanako, the next one, unadulterated. We can also say another way, 𝐸𝐶 we don't need to add anything into it. For example, when we are going to practice anapanasati, we don't need to add anything into it, such as in our breath, anicca, in our breath, dukkha. We don't need to do anything like that. We just need to focus on the breath simply. That is why we call 𝐸𝐶, nothing to add into it. So like Buddhanosati, we can also visualize Buddha's quality. We can also know, we can also know Buddha's image. We can also know Buddha's quality, like this. But in the case of anapanasati, just knowing the breathing, simply and naturally. So if we can know and see it, it's good enough for practitioner today. Okay, now we have the Sukhoja Viharo, blissful abiding. We can live peacefully and happily. That is why it will be blissful. Because Anapana itself is very subtle, very calm and quiet. Already we have mentioned, Sando Bonito, like calm and stabilized. So that's why we can also live with blissful minds. Opano pane babake agusale dhammi thana so andara dhabeti upasameti. So the Anapana also can vanish immediately. It also can make the evil and unwholesome dhamma disappear and cease whenever they arise. When we can practice very well, it will happen. As soon as we can focus on the breath, we may not have unwholesome thoughts. We will not have any unwholesome minds. That's why it's very convenient for any practitioners. Okay, we have to continue the next one. The simile of Baba, who acquires a treasure of gem. When we are very poor, we understand that it's very difficult to get the treasure of gem. So he will guard and love it, or he will protect the gem with great affections, feeling reverence for it. He appreciates the value of it. Similarly, when we know the value of anapanasati, also when we know the value of practice, we may respect, we may guard our practice. That's the way we have to understand. So when we are going to meditate, the Buddha also recommends in Anapanasati chapter in Mahasatipatthana Sutta or Anapanasati Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya, also Anapanasati Sutta in Samyutta Nikaya. So whenever the Buddha talk about Anapanasati, the Buddha will say to meditate in three places. Aranya in the forest, Rukhamula at the foot of a tree, Sunyagara in a secluded place. So we have already mentioned about the forest. It should be far from houses. It must be quiet and calm. So we also have to already talk about the foot of a tree. There are some types of tree we must not live under the tree, right? Like for example, there's a lot of fruit on the tree. If we sit under the tree, the fruit will fall, and it can also harm our body or our head or somewhere, right? So we also had already mentioned the tree we must not live. So there's along about trees we can live, we can meditate. So we also like Sunyagara, the secluded place. It can be anywhere. So it can be like a cave. It also can be like a bamboo hut. It also can be anything similar to kuti or residence. We can use as like a living place. We can also meditate there. Then the Buddha talk about the facets of four. Okay, next one. So we mentioned here, when breathing in long, he understands I'm breathing long. When breathing out long, he understands I'm breathing out long. This is the first part. So in the very beginning, the Buddha also say, he just mindfully breathe in, mindfully breathe out. In Pali, we call Sattva Asasati, Sattva Pasasati. So briefly, we just need to focus on the breath without making any extra efforts to make it long or to make it short. So now here in this case, in the very beginning, we can have a long breath. That is why it started with breathing in long. He understands I'm breathing in long. When breathing out long, he understands I'm breathing out long. So this is a very beginning of practice. Then two, he mentioned when he breathing in short, he understands I am breathing short. When he breathes out short, he understands I am breathing out short. So these two, short breath and long breath. Here, short and long doesn't mean the distance. It doesn't mean 1 inches, 2 inches, 3 inches, and so forth. It just means the duration. So sometimes we are breathing very slowly. At the time, we are breathing in, breathing out long. Sometimes we are breathing very quickly. At the time, we have short breath. We have to know it naturally. Don't create to be long or to be short. If we make it long or short purposely, then we feel tension in our chest, around our nostril. So most of the time, I also remind many of meditators, don't control your breathing. If you're trying to control it, you may feel suffocating or chest pain. You may also feel tension around your nostril. That's why relax your mind, focus on the breath normally and naturally. So although what I mentioned, short and long breath, two different things, we don't need to make it short or long purposely. It should be natural all the time. But we should go the next one. 3. I shall breathe in, experiencing the whole breath body, thus he trains. I shall breathe out, experiencing the whole breath body, thus he trains. Many people misunderstand this part. Actually, when we talk about impurity of breathing, we have already mentioned we must not follow internally or externally. That's why here in the case of experiencing the whole body or the whole breath body, here we just use the whole breath body. In Pali, we call Sabba Kaya Pati. Because of the Pali usage, people misunderstand. We have to know the breathing in all over the body. They have that kind of interpretation. But in reality, according to impurity, we must not follow internally or externally. That is why we must wait and watch around the nostril. We must know the in-breath from the very beginning to the end. We must know the out-breath from the very beginning to the end on the touching point, without following internally or externally. We have to understand this one properly. Otherwise, there will be impurity of meditations, impurity of anapanasati. So 4, he mentioned anxious breathing, tranquilizing the body formation, thus he trains. Anxious breathe out, tranquilizing the body formation, thus he trains. So here, tranquilizing the body formation. So that means we can focus on the subtle breaths. So if we can know the subtle breaths, sometimes we will have difficulty. The longer we meditate, the more subtle breath we can have. Sometimes because of very much subtle breath, we are impatient. We cannot practice very well. Actually, this part can cover up to Vipassana. It mentioned many different ways of explanations about tranquilizing the blood, the body formations. Okay, one more thing here. In Pali, we call body formation kaya sankhara, body formation. So we have one statement in Pali, asasapasasa kaya sankhara. The in-breath and the breath out-breath is a kaya sankhara, body formations. We have to understand like that. It doesn't mean, okay, it will be different from formation and regate. This is here, body formation means is breathing in and out. Okay, in this case, in both previous one, we should talk about satiety. The next one, satiety. So when we talk about whole breath body, and we also have to talk about tranquilizing the breath. They are mentioned satiety, trains. What does that mean, trains? Now, satiety means making an effort to know the whole breath body, right? This is one thing. Not only that, when we talk about subtle breaths, also we have to train ourselves. We have to make efforts to know the subtle breaths. This is called satiety. So here's mindfulness associated with knowledge. We can also say mindfulness associated with wisdom. So he also mentioned something about restraint here. Actually, also talk about satiety also like a 𝐕𝐢𝐬𝐻 or 𝐷𝐷, something like that in Pali. So here we have to understand the satiety means restraint by mindfulness and effort. So we have many different types of restraints. We have already mentioned the one in the chapter of morality. So now here, restraint by mindfulness. That means knowing one object, we can guard our six doors, restraint by mindfulness. Restraint by efforts. We have to make efforts to overcome our some thoughts. So the restraint is morality training. We have already explained all these restraints in the chapter of Sila, morality. So one more thing here. When we have very strong morality, the morality can produce concentration. The concentration also can produce wisdom. We have such a cause and effect relationship. So the practitioners is cultivating, developing, and training three higher trainings by practicing mindfulness of breathing. So actually there are many different practices to overcome hindrances, but this also, mindfulness of breathing also one of the practices to overcome. Okay, now we have to continue the next one. Pasambayam, tranquilizing the breath. So actually we have already talked about the first set of four. They are mentioned, Pasambayam Kaya Sankharam, tranquilizing the body formation. Here body formation means the breathing. That's why here Pasambayam means tranquilizing the breath. So before meditating, the breath is a growth. Because of the mind and the body are not tranquilized. After start meditating, the mind and body become tranquilized and the breath becomes settled. Because the breath becomes tranquilized. So actually, when we are working very heavy job, our breathing will become very strong, very obvious when we become very tired. Sometimes our nose hole is not enough for breathing. That's why we have to use our mouth. Opening the mouth, we have to breathe and breathe out. That's called like a untranquilized or not tranquilized body. Then after starting meditating, we may have calmness of the mind. When the mind becomes very calm and quiet, then the breath becomes settled. At the time we can know tranquilizing breath. As I have mentioned before, when we have very much settled breath, we must be more patient. But here I have to remind something about meditators. Actually, when we have settled breath, don't analyze too much. If you try to analyze, it will get worse. Sometimes the breath will disappear. Sometimes we also put extra efforts to know the settled breath. If we put extra efforts, it will get worse. Sometimes the breath will disappear. It's also really very important to make it natural, to focus on the breath patiently. So it will be sabdala and sabdala according to the 3 stages. This is the first jhana, upajjhara, also first jhana. Okay, this is just example. It will actually in Visuddhimagga it mentioned very much in detail. Not only in Visuddhimagga, it also mentioned in other texts, such as Samana Pasadika, Purification also mentioned the same things. So in the very beginning, we have gross breath. Gradually, when we see the nimitta, it will become very subtle. Then when our nimitta change to Buddhivagga nimitta, then the breathing will become very subtle. Sometimes we cannot know the breathing, we just know the nimitta. So as soon as we start focus on the nimitta, sometimes we cannot know the breathing anymore. Most of the time we don't know the breathing. So we can take the first jhana, upajjhara, accept concentrations, it will become more subtle. We can take the first jhana, it will be more subtle, subtler than upajjhara jhana. Similarly, second jhana, upajjhara, and second jhana. The jhana, upajjhara, and third jhana. Also, in the fourth jhana, upajjhara, and the fourth jhana. So in the fourth jhana, the breathing will disappear. Totally disappear. So we have this kind of explanation. That's why we have to know step by steps. We may have very subtle breaths. Okay, we have to move to the next one. And vipassana. So when we are practicing vipassana, according to different types of discernment, the breath will become very subtle. For example, 1, Mahabhuta Parigaha, discerning 4 elements. So whenever we are going to practice vipassana, the Buddha always explains the 4 element discernment in brief or in detail. Later, in the very beginning of vipassana, we have to explain that one again. So the foundations of vipassana is 4 elements. When we are discerning 4 elements, the breath will be a little bit gross. But number 2, Upada Rupa Parigaha, discerning the right materialities. For example, about 4 elements, we have earth element, water element, fire element, wind element, only 4 elements. After discerning it, in the case of direct materialities, we may have like a color, smell, taste, or the nutritive essence in 1 rupa kalapas. Also, we may have many other materialities. When we are discerning direct materialities, the breath will become more subtle. Then 3, Sakala Rupa Parigaha, discerning all kinds of materialities. That means we have to discern all types of materialities, including 4 elements and dual materialities. Okay, for example, in one Kalapas, there will be at least 4 characteristics or 4 materialities. Sorry, 8 materialities. What? 5 earth elements, water elements, fire elements, one element, the color, the smell, the flavor, and the nutritive essence. Some Rupa Kalapas may have 9, some Kalapas may have 10. When we are designing all kinds of materialities, the breath will become more subtle. After that, 4. Arupa Brikaha, discerning mentality. So, okay, one more thing here. We may have different auras according to the practitioners. Those who have a jhana can start with discerning mentality. Those who do not have any jhana must practice discerning 4 elements. Sorry, they must start with discerning materialities. Okay, anyway, after discerning materialities, when we are discerning mentality, the breath will become subtler, more subtle. Then 5. Rupa Brikaha, discerning materialities and mentality, 2 together. So we have to understand these 2 things. First, we have to discern Rupas, second discern Nama, after that discern Nama and Rupa together. It also can be mentality, after that materialities. Later, we have to talk about all the practice in detail. 6. Pratya Brikaha, discerning causes. As we have discerned ultimate reality, materialities, and mentality, we also have to know the causes of all the materialities and mentality. We are discerning their causes. It will be subtler than before. Now, the next steps. 7. Sabhajaya Namarupa Brikaha, discerning materiality and mentality together with their causes. So first causes, after that discerning together with mentality together with their causes. Okay, now 8. Lakkhana Ramanika Vipassana. Okay, Lakkhana means the characteristics such as anicca, dukkha, anatta. These are called Lakkhana, the characteristics. So the insight that takes 3 characteristics, contemplating materialities, mentality, and their causes with general characteristics, anicca, dukkha, anatta. So that means we must know mentalities and materialities and their causes, and we have to contemplate them as impermanence, suffering, non-self in this stage. So actually, to be able to discern anicca, dukkha, anatta, we have to pass 7 steps in Vipassana. After 7 steps, we can start practicing anicca, dukkha, anatta. We have to understand that one. 9. Tender insight. So tender insight means it will be up to Udayabhaya Jnana, the knowledge of horizon impression. Udayabhaya Jnana can divide into 2 parts. In the very beginning, we may have impurity of inside knowledges, such as very bright light, tranquility, rapture, and so forth. This is called tender insight. After overcoming all the impurity or imperfections of inside knowledge, we call powerful insight. Rawa Vipassana 10. So according to all these steps, the breathing will be subtler and subtler. So, for example, 9 and 10. In Dubala Upasana, although it's subtle, but compared to Balava Upasana, it will be a little bit gross. In the Balava Upasana, it will become very subtle, more subtle than Dubala Upasana. So these are step-by-step explanations of subtle breath. We can say tranquilizing the breath body. So we have, we want them 5 steps, right? Okay, can you use never 5 steps? Okay, 5 steps. So here we also talk about 5 steps to practice mindfulness of breathing. Actually, we have already mentioned similar thing in Kasina. That's why here I just talk about, right? Just changing to Anapanasati. The first step, Ogaha, learning how to meditate by heart. So Asian culture, we have to memorize all the things. We have to remember all the procedure after what we have to do. For example, now here we have disappearing of the breath. Sometimes it can be. So what should we do? Just wait and watch on the touching point until the breath reappear. Or you can also say, I'm not a dead person. I have breathing, right? So we can also pay attention like that. So anyway, we have to learn all the things, all the procedure, step and steps. Then 2, Paripucha, questioning the meaning and definitions of meditation subject. For example, in our previous talk, we talk about impurity. We also have already mentioned the touching point is also called nimitta. This is the one thing. Then later we also have 3 types of nimitta again: okha nimitta, parikama nimitta, okha nimitta, pratipaka nimitta, right? So if we say just nimitta, it also can be touching point. If we talk about parikama nimitta, okha nimitta, pratipaka nimitta, it will be another meaning. So we have to know the definitions of all the single term, all the usage in meditation. If we have doubt about some point of meditations, we have to ask the teacher. This is called Paripucha. Upatthana, appearance of nimitta, how the nimitta appears. Today we didn't talk about nimitta too much because it will be maybe tomorrow, next week maybe. So it mentioned many different types of nimitta. Even in Visuddhimagga, it mentioned many different types, different shapes, different color. It depends on our perceptions. We may have different types of nimitta. We also have to learn how nimitta can appear. Then 4, apana, complete training or attaining jhana. How one attains jhana. Actually, we have already explained about jhana in the Kasina. We also have already explained the quality of jhana. We also have already mentioned how we can enter jhana, how to practice masteries, and so forth. This is also the way we have to learn. 5, lakkhana, noting the nature of meditation subjects. This Kasina has this kind of nature. We have already mentioned the one in Kasina. So in the case of anapanasati, we have different nature, right, of anapanasati. For example, now we have short breath, long breath, whole breath body, tranquilizing the breath, and so forth. It mentioned many different theory of anapanasati. We have to know the nature of anapanasati in detail. We also already mentioned impurity of anapanasati, the purity of anapanasati. All these are the nature of meditation. If we can learn very well then we can start meditating. Then, okay, we have to continue the next part. The ways to give attention to it. So, they are mentioned 7 steps, or we can say 7 ways to practice. Some of them are very familiar with meditators now. For example, 1, Ganana, counting. Everybody knows this method because as soon as a new meditator arrives to our monastery, we just give instructions using counting methods as the basics. So we have to know breathing in, breathing out. After that, we can count 1. Second time, breathing in, breathing out, then count 2. Breathing in, breathing out, count 3. It can be at least 5, up to 5, not more than 10. We can stop in any number. So actually in Paotoya, with respect to Noble 4 parts, we just recommend meditator to count 1 to 8. Of course, we can also count 1 to 7, right? There's 7 enlightenment feathers. Of course, we can also count 1 to 9 because we have 9 Buddha's quality, or 9 noble dhammas, right? Similarly, we can also count up to 10, like 10 perfections, for example, right? In memory of 10 perfections. Anyway, it depends on condition we have. We can count at least 1 to 5, at most up to 10. So when we are counting also, we must know in our breath. Sometimes without knowing in and out, if we just counting, it's not that much useful. The main point is when we have a lot of thoughts, we can do counting methods. Sometimes meditator also asks, how long should we count? We cannot limit the time. As long as we have a thoughts, we can do counting. If we don't have any thoughts, we can stop counting. It depends on the wandering thoughts we have. So if we can overcome the wandering thoughts, just try to know the breathing normally is much better. Then we have 2, anubandhana, connection. So this also actually similar to whole breath body. We must focus on the breath in the very beginning, and the middle, and the end. So we have already talked about it. We must not follow the breathing internally or externally. If we follow internally, it's also wandering thoughts internally. Right? If we follow externally, then we also have wandering thoughts externally. As we have mentioned in the integrity, we must not follow internally or externally, just try to know in our breath on the touching point. This is called anubandhana. Then 3, pusana, touching. Actually, we don't have any specific explanation about pusana, touching. Because when we talk about counting also, through touching, we must count. We talk about connections, whole breath body also, we must use touching points as the main center. We can also know in our breath from the very beginning to the end. So 3, touching is it. Touching also has relationship with counting and a connection. 4, fixing. This one also, we don't have any specific explanations. Then we must fix on the touching point. Our mind must fix on the touching point. Also, this also have relationship with counting and connections. For example, fixing on the touching point, we can also count breathing in, breathing out. Similarly, focusing on the whole breath body, we can also fixing on the touching point, we can also know whole breath body. Tapana also can also have relationship with Kanana and then Anupadana, counting and connection. So another one is 5, Sanlakkhana, observing. Actually, this part is for Vipassana practitioners. So how should we do in this Sanlakkhana? After attaining jhana, we can practice this one, Sanlakkhana. It can be a little bit different for those who cannot attain jhana, such as pure Vipassana vehicle. So since they are pure Vipassana vehicle, they don't have jhana, then they can enter into asset concentration. Imagine for asset concentrations, they can do some mentalities and materialities and so forth. For our jhana practitioners, after emerging from jhana, they can discern jhana mentalities, jhana dhammas. Also, they can also discern materialities together with their causes. After that, the meditator can contemplate them as impermanent, suffering, non-self. So when practicing Vipassana, we can say Sanlakkhana, observing. Vivatana, turning away. The turning away is a little bit different from previous parts. This is actually path knowledge. When we attain path knowledge, actually you can understand turning away means turning away from defilements, right? In the path knowledge, it will eradicate the defilements. Then 7, Parisuddhi, purification. This is fruition knowledge. So in brief, we can understand these 7 steps or 7 ways to give attention to anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. The first 4 are for samatha practitioners. The 5th is for vipassana practitioners. 6 and 7 are for path and fruition knowledge. So now for beginner, we recommend the first 4. Okay, now the simile of wine cup. Okay, we can move on. The simile of a wine cup. This simile can be found in Visuddhimagga. Similarly, we can also find in Samanapasatika and also in Bodhisattva. They are mentioned. Here's a cow owner. Here's a wine cup. It was running here and there, out of his control, sometimes disturb other people. He would to tame it. The trainer tied up it with a strong ropes to a strong and firm pillar. So the wine cup is not used to be with this kind of situation. It's always going here and there, disturbing people. Initially, the wine cup will struggle to run away. It will struggle many ways to release from that kind of situation. But the rope and the pillar are so strong that it cannot move. The more it struggles, the more it becomes tired. When the calf becomes very tired, it will stop struggling and it will not run away anymore. Similarly, when we are going to meditate, our mindfulness, our awareness is like a rope. When our awareness becomes very strong and very powerful, then we have very strong rope. Then the objects, the breathing, is like a pillar. So the object also very clear. One more thing here, we have very powerful mindfulness and also very clear breathing. Then the wine cup is like a mind will not run away. This is the simile. Mostly our mind like to go here and there. When we are starting meditating, when we start meditating, our mind will wander because we are not used to be with one object. Every day we have many objects, different colors, different sounds, different smells, different tastes, different tangible objects, different thought process, different mind objects. The mind likes many different things, but now when we are going to meditate, we have to focus on one object. Mind is not used to be with that kind of situation. That's why the mind will run away. Just tied up with a rope, with a strong pillar. Finally, the mind will become very tired to run away. It will be used to be with the situation. That means the mind will be very familiar with the breathing and the mindfulness. Then we can start concentrating. After that, we can improve our concentration. This is the simile we can find. Okay, now we have another simile. Simile of great measures when counting. Actually, I should explain that one when we talk about counting methods. Mostly, when you meditator come, we also explain that one from time to time. So it means it's carrying body from one place to another, to move the body from one place to another. When he was carrying on the way, when we are carrying one bag of body or one basket full of body, he will count one continuously in order that he may not forget many bags he has carried. So the first bag count one like this. The second bag he will count two on the way. On the way back also count one unto the first place. Similarly, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that. He just counts continuously. Sometimes some people also ask me, when we have very long breathing, how shall we count? Mostly I recommend this method. When we have very long breathing, we can count one continuously like that. If we have a lot of thoughts, when we have long breath, we should do the same. We can count one and see whole breath body in out, right? Then similarly, 2, 3 like this. So here, okay, as I mentioned here, similarly, the meditator can count in and out breath, one empty, although in and out breath ends, especially when he has wandering thoughts, although he is counting normally. If we cannot overcome the thoughts by counting normally, we can use this method, counting continuously, one like this, two like this. This is it, the way we are counting. Another one, next one, simile of a calm boy. This is also counting method. So sometimes people also ask, where should we wait and watch? Where should we know the breathing? Of course, a very clear explanation in 𝐕𝐢𝐬𝐻. We have to know the touching point, right? already mentioned the in-breath, the out-breath, the touching points, or we can say like nimitta. If we cannot know one of these three, we cannot complete the training. At least we must know one of these three. So now, the somebody of a calm boy, he has to send the calm to the pastor, to the feet. Then he has to go to the stable. He will wait in the gate. Before going there, he will collect many stones to carry with him. Then he opened the gates and waits. When the first cow come out from the stable, he will pick up one stone and throw at the back of a cow and count 1. When second cow come out, he will throw a stone at the cow and count 2, like that. Similarly, so when we are breathing in, breathing out, we just wait and watch on the nostril. They'll count 1, 2, 3, like that. So this is the assembly of calm boy. Okay, we have to wait and watch on the touching point that count 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. The assembly of a gatekeeper. Okay, this also is the example we have to understand properly. The gatekeeper. Okay, now is a little bit difficult to explain that we don't have that kind of tradition, right? But now in your country, you may have toll gates. When we are traveling, we have to pass the toll gates. So before we get there, we will stop on the way. The responsible person will not come and ask, why do you come to our toll gate? Why do you pass our toll gate? It's not his responsibility. Because we don't pass the toll gate. So after passing the toll gates, he will ask, why don't you come back to pass our toll gate? It's not his responsibility. They have only responsibility to check the vehicle or to when we pass through their gate. So now, okay, here at ancient time they have city gate, the gate of the city. So the gatekeeper does not have any responsibility to ask people outside the gate or inside the gate. He has the responsibility to ask people who pass his gate. So according to Asian culture, he will be near the gates. So many people are outside the city. He may not say, why don't you pass my gate to enter the city? This is not his responsibility. There are many people inside the city. He don't have any responsibility to ask them, why did you go out to pass our gate? He has only responsibility to ask or to check people when they pass the gate. Similarly, when we are going to meditate, we just have only responsibility to know the breathing and the touching place or touching point. We does not need to go inside or outside the body. Mostly, when we talk about whole breath body, you must remember this simile. Many people misunderstand whole breath body means actually I already explained before last week. The very beginning of in-breath is on the nostril. The middle is in the chest. The end is in the middle, in the navel. The beginning of the out-breath is in the navel. The middle of the out-breath is in the chest. The end of our out-breath is nostril. This is just the nature of breathing. it doesn't mean we have to follow the breathing from the nostril to the chest from the nostril to the navel to the nostril. When we are focused on the breath, we must wait and watch in the touching points. When we breathe in, just trying to know the in-breath on the touching points. When we breathe out, just trying to know the out-breath on the touching points. We must know whole breath body on the touching point. Okay, now, the simile of 𝐸𝐸𝐻𝐻. This is another simile. So, a man keeping a log or trunk of a tree on the smooth or even ground, cut the log. Using a saw, he cut it. He does not pay attention to the teeth of the saw coming and going. So we can easily know the one. Actually, when we are cutting woods, we must know the tip of the saw touching on the woods. So when we pull it, it will touch the woods. When we push also, it will touch the woods. We have to know, is it touching properly or not? If we follow, just seeing that, pay attention to the saw, the tip of the saw too much, then we cannot know it's touching properly or not. Well, this one is just cutting the woods. Sometimes we have to carve. But we are going to make furniture. We have to mark on the woods. By using the saw, we have to cut properly. If we cannot cut properly, then we will waste the wood, right? So similarly, when we are going to practice mindfulness of breathing, we must not follow inside the body or outside the body. Just trying to wait and watch around the nostril. So this one also actually, when we are going to practice whole breath body, we have to remember this simile, the simile of 𝐸𝐸𝐻𝐻. Now sometimes when we think that we are fat or our body is expanded, this kind of thing can happen many times in the practice. Actually, many people have experienced that one. Sometimes they say, my body is expanding, like trying to explode. It's going to explode. I feel like my body is going to explode. They have this kind of reports. Actually, when we follow in breath inside the body, our body will feel like our body is expanded, like filling up with oil. So don't follow inside the body. Don't follow outside the body. We have already talked about it in impurity. Okay, now next one. 𝐕𝐢𝐬𝐻𝐸𝐻 give 4 factors for making the breath tranquil. So there are mentioned 4 things: ābhoga and samanahara, manasikara, vajarakana. Ābhoga means concern. Actually, we just have to follow the translation. That's why here I just translate as a concern. The ābhoga means advancing the mind to tranquilize the breath. We can also say we have to advance our mind to tranquilizing the breath. This is called ābhoga. Samanahara, reaction. Okay. Actually, samanahara means advancing the mind repeatedly. As you know, when we are going to practice, we have to apply our mind to the objects repeatedly. As we have already known, Anupassana. Anupassana means Anu means again and again. Passana means seeing or viewing. So now in the case of Anapanasati, we have to apply our mind to the object again and again. This is called Samanahara reaction. So actually this part, this one were mentioned in the four steps we call tranquilizing the breath. Right? He trained us, he know. So anyway, the main thing is to be able to tranquilize our breathing, we must advance our mind to tranquilize the breath. Otherwise, it cannot be calm and quiet breath or the steady breath. Manasikara, attention. So you're keeping the mind on it. We have to keep our minds on it. That means we also can say another way. We must bear in mind that we have to tranquilize our breath. This also can be considered as a manasikara. Okay, now 4, Pachavakana, reviewing. Although here we translate as a reviewing, but in this case we translate as a vimansa in Pali. Vimansa means investigation. Actually, many of meditators have that kind of experience. When we focus on the breath very much in detail, the breath becomes very subtle. We can know very much in detail, then finally the breath becomes very subtle. When we have gross breath, we can investigate like that. But one more thing here, we have to remind, when we have very much subtle breath, don't investigate, don't analyze too much. If you're trying to analyze, you will get confused. When you have doubt, this hindrance, we cannot improve anymore. That is why Vajrayana reviewing means we have to investigate the breath to tranquilize it. That means don't analyze too much also, right? If you analyze too much, we get confused. Then we have the next part about 3 types of nimittas. Parikama nimitta, the preparatory signs. Ugga nimitta, the taking up sign. So in these two, we have to focus on the breathing. Preparatory signs, it can be natural breathing, also called Parikama nimitta. Finally, you can change to any different types of shape or color together with the breathing. It can be different signs. Sorry. So for example, sometimes it can be like smoke. It depends on the perceptions of people. There can be different types of nimitta. For example, one yogi, one meditator, you see like a smoke. When you smoke, right, you have to exhale the nose, smoke will come out. He see like that. Then okay, one more thing, like a Western country, like Europe or America or some, like even some part of Japan or Korea or like China, they have very cold weather. Even some part of Myanmar, we have very cold weather, right? We become very cold when we breathe in, right? Like smoke will come out from our nose. When we speak also, smoke will come out from our mouth. Similarly, Parikama nimitta can be many different types according to our perceptions. Ugga nimitta also can be different types. Compared to Parikama nimitta, Ugga nimitta is a little bit brighter, a little bit stronger. There is some exception for some meditator. The some meditator can also focus on the 𝐿 nimitta, although it's not so bright yet. Their breath become very subtle. They cannot feel the breath very well. Their mind can switch awareness on the nimitta. This is also okay. So 3, Pratipaka nimitta is the strongest one, the counterpart signs. So in this counterpart signs, mostly we can take asset concentrations or absorption concentration. It will be very bright. As we have explained before, we have the quality of minds or quality of concentrations when we practice vipassana. Right? For example, even samadhi chitti, priyodhati, something like that. We could do say something like that. So that means priyodhati means very bright. You mention like that. So as we have 3 types of nimittas, we also have 3 types of bhavana. Previous one? Previous slide? Previous slide. Okay. Previous extra. 3 types of concentrations. Purikama bhavana, because of preparatory concentration, is also called momentary concentrations. Upachara as a concentration. So okay, now when we can see the jhana, or when we can see the counterpart signs, we can attain asset concentrations. Also apana bhavana, absorption concentration, because of the 8 attainments. So these 3 concentrations have relationship with 3 types of nimitta. The first 2 types of nimitta, parikama nimitta, the preparatory sign, and 𝐿 nimitta, the learning sign. In that stage, we have parikama bhavana, number 1, preparatory concentrations. The last types of nimitta, Pratipaka nimitta, the counterpart sign. In the other stage, we have upachara, asset concentrations, and apana, absorption concentration. So many people ask, without nimitta, can we attain jhana? According to Visuddhimagga, no. Without nimitta, you cannot attain jhana. So we also have already mentioned the power of Pratipaka nimitta. When the Pratipaka nimitta appears, the hindrances and defilements are subsided. So we have hindrances such as sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, then also restlessness and remorse, and doubt or skepticism. So when we have hindrances, we cannot attain jhana. These are opposite factors of jhana. These are the enemies of jhana. Also defilements. We have many other defilements, such as pride. Then we also have like a wrong view. Then when we have many very strong defilements, it also can become an obstacle to attain jhana. But when the Pratipaka nimitta appears, the mind becomes very calm and quiet. It can subside, the mind can subside defilements and hindrances. The mindfulness becomes powerful. Of course, when we can absorb our mind on the objects, it becomes very powerful. The meditator can take asset concentration at the least. So here one more thing. At the time, do not pay attention to the colors, the individual and general characteristics. What does it mean? Not only the colors, really, we must not pay attention to any shapes, any colors, it will be very big disturbance. Also, individual characteristics. What does mean individual characteristics? Individual characteristics means it's like a hardness, roughness, heaviness, softness, and so forth. These are the characteristics of 4 elements. That's why we must not pay attention to it. When we are focused on the breath, we must know the breathing as a concept. Don't think about any other phenomena. It will get worse. Now, general characteristics. At the time, don't think about anicca, dukkha, anatta. Breathing in, breathing out, anicca. Breathing in, breathing out, dukkha. Not like this. If we do like this is not pure breathing meditation. So trying to be skillful with the attainments. So we must try to master the jhana. We have already explained about mastery before. Then again, the last part of today's Dhamma talks. 2 causes of jhanas. So when we can focus on the Patipaka Nimitta, when our mind can absorb on it, we can say that is like jhana, right? Here we have 2 causes of jhana. Adhikara, having practiced jhana in the past lives. Adhi means superior or higher. Kara means doing. That means if we have already practiced very superior state or higher state of mind in the past, we will have jhana. We can attain jhana easily. Then 2, Pubbapa Yoga. Practicing jhana in this very life before attaining it. Of course, we understand that without practicing, we cannot attain jhana, right? By praying or by wishing, we cannot attain anything. We must practice practically. If we can practice well, if we can practice properly, we can attain jhana. So these 2 are the causes of jhana. Okay, one more thing here. When we are going to practice anapanasati, we have to know the basic theory or basic things. If we summarize all these explanations briefly, we must have natural breathing. Don't control, don't force. If we control or force too much, we cannot practice so well. This is the one thing. Another one is our mind. Our mind must be calm and quiet. If our mind becomes very busy, we cannot focus very well. So if we can harmoniously focus on the breath, we can improve faster. Okay, so next week, I have to continue something about nimitta and maybe many other steps. So may you all be able to practice the 3 trainings, and may you all be able to realize the Noble Eightfold Path. Sorry, may you all be able to realize 4 Noble Truths, and may you all be able to attain the final cessation, Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Question number 1. Dear Sayadaw, could Sayadaw please explain which are the serious traps that meditators may encounter on their path of meditation practice? How should the meditator avoid or overcome these traps? Sadhu, sadhu.
Good question, right? Actually, we have many traps. The first one is excessive efforts. When we are using very strong efforts, Actually, it's really, really very, very difficult. We have many difficulty. We have tension in the body. Some unnatural breathing, control breathing or forcing too much. This is also round trips. This is for very beginning. But later, we have another traps. Another traps is comforts. When we feel peacefulness, tranquility, rapture, joy, our mind inclined to that kind of things too much. We cannot improve anymore. There are many meditators, they stop in that point. They like peacefulness. Sure, of course, we are practicing for peacefulness, right? If we just follow peacefulness like this, then we cannot improve. So briefly, your breathing must be natural, don't control, don't force. This is also a trap. You may feel discomfort if you follow that trap. Now, if you have too much comfort, don't follow it. You will stop there, no more improvements. Okay?
If someone already committed the 5 Untitled karma, this karma, how would it ripen, or in what type of effect it will appear in the future?
If like a mighty karma, you mean mighty karma, right? In mighty
Yes,
karma,
Sayadaw.
actually, in mighty karma, they will be reborn in the hell. No choice. Right? This one is very clear.
Sayadaw. First question. When I am practicing anapanasati, sometimes I can at the same time feel the in and out breath and the movement of my chest or my lung. Sometimes even I can feel the breath together with my heart moving. So may I ask Bande, why these conditions happens? Is it that I have paid attention to my breath and my body at the same time?
Sure.
And second question, when I try to remove this awareness on the chest or the heart area, I find that I can see them even clearer, see the heart or the chest moving clearer. So how should I overcome this problem?
Actually, this is also one of the impurity. You follow inside your body. That's why it happened. Don't follow breathing. Actually, if we know one pointedness, that means we have to know only one area. Don't follow any body parts. Don't try to investigate anything in the body. If we try to investigate many things in the body, we will know many things. Then also not that much useful. Okay, the main point is, whatever thing you feel, try to ignore it. Just bring your mind back to the breath. It will be easier to overcome it. Okay?
Dear Sayadaw, this part they have 3 small ones. The first part is last week, Sayadaw explained that touching point is also nimitta in the case when a meditator is unable to know his in and out breath, and at that time, should he focus on the touching point instead?
Sure, right. You can focus on the touching point, sure. Okay? This one, 2.
Part number 2, if he is allowed to focus on the touching point, how should the meditator pay attention in order not to focus wrongly on the skin or elements which may cause tension problems?
Actually, if you just use short time, it doesn't matter. When you have habit of focus on the sensation too much, then it will be the problem. Sometimes when you use too much mind power to know the breathing, it will be the problem. As long as you just know normally or short time, right? Before you feel the breath, you focus on the touching point, it doesn't matter. Okay?
And the last part, number 3, when the breath becomes very subtle and difficult to focus, one Bante teach student to focus on the touching point instead of the in and out breath. He believes that by focusing on the touching point, the nimitta will appear faster and brighter. That means instead of breath being primary and touching point being secondary, the Bante changes the sequence and make the touching point primary.
Actually, we have already talked about impurity. right? As long as we can know breathing in, breathing out, and touching point, it's good enough. So we don't have any primary or secondary. It depends on the situation we have. For example, sometimes, although we have like very steady breath, we can keep knowing breathing. Sometimes we just know only the in-breath, no out-breath. Sometimes only the out-breath, no in-breath. We may have many different situations. Okay, we can change our practicing system according to the situation we have. Okay, in this case, we have to remind, right? Don't make it secondary or primary. Everything can be primary. Everything can be secondary, right? Okay.
We have 3 parts. First, quick Sayadaw mentions about Dhamma Dandaya, obstruction. Could Sayadaw explain with some example what are some of the common and serious obstructions made by many meditators in the monastery?
Okay, so you may have experience, you may have met many of Dhamma friends. Some of the meditator, when they have very calmness of the mind, their mind is not very ready to accept the situations, then a lot of struggling, a lot of thoughts or exciting. Actually, many are meditator here. I have some yogi here. I think nearly 8 years here, I think. He has seen the nimitta. Long times ago, I've seen nimitta. He can focus on the nimitta. But when mind becomes very calm and quiet, he becomes excited. Cannot focus anymore. So come back to the breathing like that. So a lot of disturbance. When we have Dhammadaraya, if we disturb other people's meditation, for example, they are one of the bhikkhus are meditating. We have intention to disturb him. We make a sound or noise or speaking very loudly, for example. Intentionally do it. Then it becomes Dhammadaraya, obstructions of Dhamma, right? So next life, when he was going to meditate, he may encounter that kind of difficulty. Whenever there's some improvement, come back, trace back, regret. Whenever there's a improvement, regrets. He may have this kind of problem. Right? This is it. The obstructions of Dhamma. Okay? Next one.
Part 2. For example, there are some meditators who always understand teacher's instruction in the opposite way or wrongly. Is this also to Dhamma Dandaya?
Yes, it also can be that because the result of Dhammadaraya in the past, maybe. Sometimes, although we explain according to the text, they are not ready to accept. They like easier way. They think it's a better way. They also say shortcuts, In the case of Dhamma, we don't have shortcuts. So, okay, if they misunderstand right instruction as a wrong, that means this is also one of the results of Dhammadaraya. We can understand like that. Okay? 3.
Part 3. If we block others in Dhamma propagation work, is this also considered as Dhamma Dandaya?
In this case, it depends on what kind of things he did. For example, like offering the books, for example, right? Dhamma propagation. In this case, instead of using Dhammadaraya, we can also use like a Punyandaraya, offering the disturbing other people's donations. We can understand like that, right? It depends on the situation we have. Okay?
Question number 6. Dear Sayadaw, according to Abhidhamma, all beings in the sensual sphere have 6 consciousness. When we recall things happen in the past, where those memories pop back into our consciousness, is that because of our perception or sanya, or is it from Phavanga?
Okay. When we recall, it also can be because of sanya, a remark in the past, right? Sanya also possible. We cannot say bhavanga. Bhavanga is only a kind of mindset also can be called bhavanga. Bhavanga is also like a hard base, right? That's why it comes from mostly sanya. Okay?
Question number 7. Dear Sayadaw, sometimes the light of wisdom is very close to the breath. In this case, how do we practically differentiate between the light of wisdom and nimitta?
So in the very beginning of nimitta, we have shape and the color. That's why, for example, like I already say, like a smoke will come out from the nose, right? Something like that. All this can be considered as a nimitta. We can see, as we see it, open eyes. This is called nimitta. For about the light of wisdom and nimitta. Actually, nimitta must be around the nostril, also very bright. Like it can be like different shape, different color. It doesn't matter, right? Different shape, different color. So I have already said nimitta has color and the shape. The light also have a color but no shape. The light is the light, right? We can understand like that.
Question number 8. Dear Sayadaw, if my touching point keep changing during one session of meditation, should I follow the change or just fix at one touching point?
If your touching point is changing, you also have to change your focusing point. But one more thing here, if you analyze too much, you may know more in detail. It will happen like this. The more you investigate or the more you analyze, the more changing you know. Then also the more complicated. To make your mind simple, keep knowing breathing normally, the normal changing. It will be very useful for you. Okay?
When the breath becomes very calm and the mind can focus on the breath very well, he felt that the mind is very tense. That is this, and the mind is like pulling tensely. So how to adjust this?
The mind is pulling tensely me. As long as you don't feel discomfort, it doesn't matter. If you feel discomfort, you can relax a little bit more. It depends on the situation you have. Okay?
Dear Sayadaw, I was able to concentrate, delegate breathing when meditation was quite regular. This year, I have not meditated as regular compared to last year, and running thoughts are a big problem. However, awareness of breathing is not struggle with, but running 5 thoughts is problem. Should I go back to counting?
Okay. If you have very sudden thoughts or maybe background thoughts, right? You have to be very careful. When it becomes habit, it will get worse. So you can go back to counting, or if necessary, you can change another object for a short time. For example, like chanting some sutta or some stanza for a short time, understanding the meaning. If you can overcome background thought or any of running thought, fine thoughts or subtle thoughts, you can come back to the breath. This is also possible. Okay, according to the situation you have, you can practice 2 ways. One thing is counting, another one is changing other object for a short time. Okay?
In the meditation retreat, he can enter into jhana, but after going back home, he cannot enter into jhana anymore. Is it because of not skillful? So what are the conditions to be fulfilled in order to enter into jhana in any time?
Okay, so another one is, when you have impediments or some unsuitable conditions, you cannot enter jhana. So you have to check what's the unsuitable conditions you have. So if you can change the situation, it will be easier for you to practice again to regain your jhana.
Is it correct to just focus onto the touching point in order to make the nimitta brighter?
We don't have fixed method like that, right? So your mind should be flexible. Don't fix in one place too much. For example, the previous question, similar to previous question, right? In previous question, too much changing, So too much changing. Okay, here in your case, fixing. Be careful. If you fix in one place too much, you have to use extra effort. it will get worse. Sometimes you will feel tense. That's why I don't recommend fixing at one point or touching point too much. Okay?
Venerable said, I'm practicing Anapanas for 2 months, so I already see the Patimanga Nimitta and the breath completely disappear. I feel like the breath no more. And when I concentrate on the Patimanga Nimitta for 1 week, and after that, I changed to practice Vipassana, Vedananupassana for 4 months. But now I came back to practice Anapana again about 1 week, but I didn't see any nimitta or Patimanga nimitta. So Venerable said, I explain why is that so?
So that means you are not very skillful yet, right? Actually, if you have already attained nimitta, you must maintain. You must learn how to maintain the nimitta. If you cannot maintain very well, so second time when you are trying second time, it's very difficult because you have already experienced many different things. And otherwise, you may expect good results as you have experienced before. When you have that kind of expectation, it will get worse. So that means you have to restart as a new meditator. Don't expect anything. Start with breathing meditation until your nimitta become very bright. Also, don't be in a hurry, right? Okay.
Question number 14. Dear Sayadaw, I used teaching point method before, but now changed to relaxing mind and awareness of breathing appeared. The awareness is around the area I concentrated before, but without locating the touching point exactly. Is it okay not to give attention to the location of touching point?
As long as you can know breathing in, breathing out naturally, it doesn't matter whether you know touching point or not. It's okay.
Venerable, for beginners, when they practice Anapanasati, how to be skillful in order to let the breath become natural, and then nimitta, can it be seen even with open eye, or it must be seen with closed eyes?
Actually, for beginner, to be skillful in breathing meditation is not that easy, but it's possible. So I have always say basic theory. Breathing must be natural, don't control, don't force. Then your mind must be calm and quiet. When your mind becomes very busy, you're going to focus very well. Another one is efforts, or balancing efforts. Neither too strong nor too weak. If you can balance all these things, you can experience good results earlier than other meditators. So what about nimitta? Actually, don't be in a hurry. As long as you are practicing righteously or properly, you can see the nimitta. Okay?
Venerable, when they say touching point in breath and out breath, the meditator can either one is okay to observe, to focus.
Yeah.
So his question is, can I continuously only focus on touching point?
There will be side effects. Be careful. Mostly, I don't recommend to focus on the touching point too much. Sometimes you may know the sensation. Sometimes they follow the sensation all over the body. It becomes habits. So sometimes if you forcefully focus on touching points, you may feel tension. That's why I don't recommend only focus on the touching points. Mostly, if you can know the breathing and breathing out without touching, it will be much better. Okay?
Venerable said, kindly explain that what is Khanika Samadhi, the momentary concentration.
Okay. Actually, we have to explain that one. Samadhan Chitan. We have 4 sets of Anapanasati, right? Today we have already finished only the first set. The first set of 4. Second set of 4. The third set of 4, right? We have four set of four. Anyway, in the Smart Hand Chaitanya, we can find Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration. Okay, briefly, according to, later I will explain Pali and English bilingual. And now, briefly, after emerging from the jhana, descend jhana dhamma, when we are contemplating jhana dhamma as anicca dukkha anatta, at the time of vipassana, we call it momentary concentration. Okay, so then when we are practicing vipassana, we call momentary concentration. Today, in today's Dhamma talk, we have already explained from 4 elements, right, up to direct materialities, all the materialities, nama discernment, nama rupa discernment. After that, nama rupa and their causes, their causes discernment, nama rupa and their causes, contemplating anicca dukkha anatta. We have many different steps. We have already mentioned today, right? So, as a basis of vipassana, when we are practicing when we are discerning 4 elements, at the time we also have to know momentary arising and apparition of ultimate realities. At the time we can also say Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration. Okay?
The mind trying to know the 3 factors, the characteristics of the 3 dhamma. Why 同时在知道相，同时也知道 means the in breath, out breath, and the nimitta. So by using the mind door to know this nimitta here, means the tip of the nose, the space outside the tip of the nose or the upper lips. So when he know this nimitta, at the same time know the in and out breath. So occasionally, unintentionally, he will 加中呼吸并觉知心窝外。Sometimes unintentionally, he will make the breath closer and aware at the chest area there are tensions, there are the sensation of tensions. 平时行走时也会不知觉自加重 and because of knowing this in breath, out breath, and nimitta, especially in nimitta, sometimes even in normal conditions when he's walking, he's unintentionally he will make the breath closer. The mind, although he can aware this, then he quickly come back to the nimitta, mean the area of touching point, and know the in and out breath. Sometimes the in and out breath become even grosser, even more harsh. He knows he is not following the in breath, out breath outside the body.
Okay.
But even with that, sometimes after one night's practicing, the next day, the lips will have this sensation of expansion. So, what are the cause for this, and how to deal with this correctly? Shall I change my kammatthana?
Okay, so the first thing is I have to make some corrections here, right? In the case of parikama nimitta, it can be 5-door mental process. For example, in the case of kasina, we have to see with our eyes, right? It will be iron mental process. In the case of now anapanasati, touching, this body mental process. In the very beginning, it can be 5-door mental process. Okay, briefly we can understand like that. From oganimitta to patipaganimitta, it can be the manodara, mind-mental process. Okay, now another. Okay, in your case, as long as it happens naturally, you may feel comfort and free. But when you start controlling something or creating something, you may feel discomfort. You have to check yourself whether you are controlling or not, or whether you are creating something or not. For example, you may control breathing to be long or to be short, or to be cross or to be subtle. Then this is also the problem. It will make you discomfort. Now you may create the breathing. Right? You may create breathing means like sometimes it's very calm and quiet. You make it gross. Create maybe to know the touching point clearly. You will forcefully breathe in, breathe out, something like that. If you create or force discomfort. In the case of anapanasati, you must feel free and comfortable. If you feel something discomfort, only two things: controlling or forcing. If you have these two, you may have this problem. So check your situation, is it right or wrong, okay?
How to do in order to let the good wish to become reality as soon as possible?
Actually, we can wish anything, right, good or bad, to become truth, or to make actions. It depends on what kind of wish you have. For example, you have a good wish to attain jhana, you must practice. You have a wish to attain nibbana, you must practice. So you must do it practically. We don't have shortcuts, right? So you must find a way to improve. If the Buddha say, don't do it, or Buddha say, try to overcome it, you have to overcome. If the Buddha say, do it, you have to do. If the Buddha say, fulfill it, you have to fulfill. If the Buddha say, cultivate it, you must cultivate. It depends on instructions or the aim you have, or the wish you have, okay?
If I send metta to myself, my own image will appear in front of me, and even in front of my heart area, there will appear a moment of bright light. And what is this light? And can I practice metta in this way?
Actually, when we are radiating metta, you can visualize your own image. Don't think about any other brightness around your body or anywhere. You must wish yourself to be well and happy, something like that, right? Just do metta. So the light or any other phenomena are not very important for practitioners in the very beginning, okay?
Vanami said all. So how can I overcome the strong sensation on the upper lip when I do anapanasati?
Yes, sure. That means you are forcing too much. Maybe you have a habit of forcing too much energy. That's why you have this kind of sensation. So if you can focus a little far from the skin, above the skin, knowing the breathing, it will be much better. So in the very beginning, okay, you can open your eyes, try to know the breathing. When you can know the breathing, normally, you can slightly close your eyes, keep knowing the breathing. Finally, although you don't feel touching point, you can know the breathing, right? If you can know breathing a little bit above the skin, it will be easier for you to overcome this problem. Another one is, if you use too much mind power to know the breath, it will get worse. Be careful, okay?
Seattle, in the past, you have done some mighty karma. After the karma ripens after finish the karma vipaka at the hell, so the rest of the future, the rest after being in the hell, and after the effect has finished at the hell, so in the future, would that karma still affects the meditator, become Dhammantaraya? And how many lives would it take effect? Then this karma vipaka will be finished.
Actually, after being born in the hell one time is good enough. This is enough for his payment, right? After releasing from the hell, he will be just normal. It depends on the life he has to be reborn. For example, if he was born as a human being, he can practice normally. You know, in the case of Venerable Devadatta, he can be a Vajika Buddha. You can imagine. He has a very strong and very powerful perfections, right? Okay, it depends on the life you have. You can regain your normal life. Okay?
Question number 24. Dear Sayadaw, I practiced Anapanasati for almost 20 years at Pawok Monastery. Whenever I focus at the nose area, bright and clear light already stick at the nostril area. As such, I am unable to focus on the breath. If I try to focus on the breath, my nostril area will become very tight. The light will stick tightly to my nose area. According to the Pawok teaching, I need to be able to focus on the breath before I can focus on the light. But I am unable to know the breath, and I will get tension if I try to do so. How could I try to overcome my stage now?
That's a little bit risky, right? Actually, when you have very strong nimitta around nostrils, sometimes you cannot know the breathing. This is a normal. If you cannot know the breathing, you can focus on the nimitta. This is a good sign already, right? Actually, I don't know who is your teacher. If somebody come to see me, that kind of situation, I just recommend, as long as you can know the breathing, focus on the breath. When the nimitta become very bright and very powerful, your mind will naturally know the breath. If your mind naturally, automatically know the breath, don't think about the breath anymore. Focus on the light or focus on the nimitta. This is the way, okay?
Yes, Sayadaw. Following the question just now, because of this condition, when he start meditate, he will notice that the breath become gross, and this and the mind will keep reminding himself not to control the breath. But this conditions doesn't improve.
Okay.
Even though he tried to remind himself not to control the breath.
Actually, instead of reminding not to control the breath, you should remind to know natural breath, right? It will be simple. So sometimes, if you have a lot of worry, anxiety, this is also one of the problems. So in the very beginning, you must calm down your mind. No worry, no expectation. You have to start as a normal practitioners. You can overcome it. If you have worry, a lot of worry, it will get worse. Now, in your case, I can understand you have a lot of worry, right? Don't worry about anything.
Not to analyze means just practice casually, means naturally, casually, no matter the breath can be known or cannot be known. Means can know the breath or not knowing the breath, just let it naturally. If he can know the breath, then he will try to know. If cannot, then try not to do. Will not force himself, not analyze. And it will automatically practice by itself, and one day it will achieve. This type of mentality, is it correct?
So, okay, one more thing. This is a training mind, right? It cannot happen naturally. We have to make efforts to know the breathing. In the case of analyzing, I means, so, for example, when you are going to know the breathing very much in detail, okay, practically, whole breath body. Try to know very much in detail on the very beginning to the end, analyzing. You may know how small area, how small the area the breathing touch. So, for example, like you may feel, oh, my breathing touching like a small thread, for example. You know very much in detail. The smaller area you try to know, the more difficulty to maintain. This is the one thing. Also, you may focus in very wide area. The wider area you focus, the more restlessness you have, the more wandering thoughts you have. That is why you must adjust your focusing points by yourself. Don't analyze them to know very much in detail. Just try to know normally. Normal breathing, natural breathing is good enough, right? So we have to train our mind to know the breath. It will not know naturally, but later, sure. When you become very skillful, your breath and the mind become very harmonious. At the time, it will be auto-function. You will know the breath effortlessly. Although you don't make efforts, your mind will know naturally. And in that kind of stage, it will be closer to the nimitta. Okay?
Question number 27. 𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 one cannot practice jhana and go to Brahma realm, then where will he reborn to if he is destroyed? If destroy and disappear, does it mean that he would not reborn again in any world?
Actually, they will be reborn in other worlds, right? In this case, when we are, okay, but in this case, we are in a hurry, That's why we may practice very diligently. Now you can live easily, that's fine. Although you don't practice meditation, it doesn't matter. In your rush hour, deadline, for example, right? At the time, you have to do in a hurry. You attain jhana practically, right? So in this case, don't worry about it. You will practice practically. You will practice very diligently to attain jhana. So most of the living beings practice very diligently to attain jhana, then they will escape. If otherwise, they will be reborn in other realms. Okay.
According to the Xiaodo's answers before, we should follow the Buddha's instructions. So, how do we know what are the Buddha's instructions?
Okay.
How do we know what has the Buddha said?
Actually, okay, we have Noble Eightfold Paths, right? Just trying to understand Noble Eightfold Paths. Basically, right speech, right actions. As long as our actions are not very harmful for other living beings, not very harmful for ourselves, we can say right speech and right actions. Not only that, when we have right speech and right actions or right livelihoods, we can improve ourselves. There are many practices. We cannot develop our spiritual power, right? Just wasting time. So briefly, okay, if we summarize, trying to understand Noble Eightfold Paths and Four Noble Truths, you will understand what's Buddha teaching. And this is real Buddha teaching. The Buddha will never say Noble Sevenfold Path or Noble Ninefold Path or Tenfold Path. The Buddha will never say Five Noble Truths or Three Noble Truths, Four Noble Truths. If you can digest these two things, then it will be easier for you. Okay? Iddhavata amehi sambadam punya sambadam sabbe deva numodandu sabbe buddha numodandu sabbe satta numodandu sabba sampatti siddhya idam me nyatinam hodu sukhita hontu nyatayo idam me nyatinam hodu sukhita hontu nyatayo idam me nyatinam hodu sukhita hontu nyatayo idam me punyam asavakaya vaham hodu idam me punyam nibbanasa pacayo hodu mama punya bhagam sabba sattanam bhajami te sabbe me samam punya bhagam lavandu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.